Hi everyone, my name is Natalie and I'll be presenting our paper, Anti-Intentional Harms, the Conceptual Pitfalls of Emotion AI in Education, on behalf of myself and my co-author, Dr. Luke Stark. So to start, just a brief overview on what I seek to do in this talk. First is to understand what emotion AI is and how it's being used in education and why. Secondly, to understand the conceptual underpinnings of these technologies. Third, to understand how these technologies are harmful in virtue of those underpinnings. And finally, to consider three potential policy responses to these harms. So to start, just a quick overview on what emotion AI actually is. Emotion AI technologies claim the ability to detect the true inner emotional state of individuals by collecting biometric information such as face scans, voice recordings, and traces of physical movement. These systems are gaining popularity in many contexts, including and especially in education, where they're mainly being used to measure attention and interest of students during lessons. To really understand their popularity, though, it's helpful for us to take a brief look at some of the histories and motivations behind these systems' use. Human emotion has historically been a vector of biopolitical control, serving as evidence or lack thereof for one's maturity and competence. The increasingly popular therapeutic narrative suggested that individuals can improve themselves to meet their own self-actualization, in part through their emotional expression. This in turn promoted the idea of emotional malleability, which has persisted into the 21st century. The idea that our emotions can be molded and shaped then kickstarted the idea of emotion management for economic ends today. School systems are increasingly being encouraged to nudge students to behave in a way that's been deemed economically valuable. Think, for example, of priming them to best perform emotional labor in the workplace. To build these technologies, though, developers have to import a conceptual understanding of what emotion actually is. But this is a decision, which, as we will see, has serious implications for justice and fairness. So conceptual understandings of emotion have traditionally been divided into two camps, intentionalism and anti-intentionalism. The former suggests that emotions are cognitive in nature and are subject to reasons. So, for example, I am sad because it is raining. Anti-intentionalism, though, suggests that emotions aren't subject to reasons or indeed meaning at all. Instead, emotions exist as innate, automatic, precognitive, preconscious, triggered brain-body behaviors, which operate outside the domain of consciousness. Paul Ekman's basic emotion theory, which holds that there exists some number of discrete universal emotions like joy, sadness, anger, etc., exemplifies anti-intentionalism and is extremely influential and successful, despite being criticized on grounds of its reliability and validity. But part of basic emotion's appeal is that it suggests that emotions are quantifiable and measurable states, thus promoting and allowing these goals of children's emotion management for economic ends. Importantly, anti-intentionalist basic emotion theory undergirds the vast majority of emotion AI systems today. So it's really important to emphasize that the existence of these technologies and their underlying theoretical and conceptual commitments are no accident. These systems belong to pervasive neoliberal capitalist agendas, which entrench their popularity and use in the first place. But we argue that these systems come with serious harm. What happens when schools integrate emotion AI technologies designed using anti-intentionalist frameworks into the classroom? Well, we can imagine the system first ascribing an affective state onto a child, like excitement or boredom. This claim will then be interpreted by the system's user, likely a teacher. The teacher might believe and reiterate the AI system's claim for various reasons. They might trust the system already, or have already suspected that the child was not paying attention. Because anti-intentionalist theories relocate the exhibition of emotion away from a subject's cognitive appraisal and towards automatic bodily responses, student emotions detected by anti-intentionalist emotion AI technologies would properly be understood by teachers as evidence of some condition or situation that's intrinsic to the child. rather than on the basis of any justifiable reason for the student's expression of that emotion. So if a child is bored, it must be because some stimulus has activated the behavioral, physiological response that correlates to the expression of an innate state of boredom, not because the child cognitively feels uninspired by science class. The key point is that if emotions bypass cognition and reason, then system judgments can't be justified by reason. Anti-intentionalism suggests that the emotion is just there, beyond the subject's conscious reflection. The problem is that this entails that the child has no logical or conceptual space to push back against any judgments made by the system. So they can't protest and claim that they weren't actually bored because of reason X or Y, because the anti-intentionalist expression of boredom, as assessed by the system, is not subject to reasons at all. The result is that children are disempowered to push back against any assessments made by these systems about their own mental states. To demand justification for their claims is simply incompatible with that anti-intentionalist framework for understanding what emotions are. We submit this as a serious harm against children and youth. And their inherent lack of justifiability opens the door to a host of other issues, like potentially granting credence to unfair teacher judgments, producing chilling effects to students afraid to be typologized as an child, emotional child, or a problem child, reinforcing discrimination against already disempowered marginalized groups in classrooms, and more. And this is all especially serious when we remember how children's emotional expressions are being tied to their future opportunities and success. So the natural question becomes, well, what can we do about this? We might think, well, what if we modified our interpretation of anti-intentionalist systems in the classroom? What if we taught teachers to judge the claims of the emotion AI system with caution and not automatically just take them as the truth? Unfortunately, though, it's doubtful that this is a practical goal. Remember that intentionality in this context involves emotion being directed towards objects and holding meaning. It doesn't entail deliberateness. If a teacher were to attempt to thwart the problems of anti-intentionalism by adopting an intentionalist interpretation of a claim made by a machine grounded in anti-intentionalism, then they're likely to just inappropriately import notions like deliberateness or agency onto it, which could open the door to unfair discipline of students from the other end of the spectrum by punishing them on the assumption that any problematic behavior is an entirely deliberate act. Students can intentionally emote without conscious deliberateness. Okay, so what if we just abandon anti-intentionalist frameworks when developing emotion AI tech for education and just use intentionalist frameworks instead? But we submit this won't work either. Basic emotion theory is extremely widespread, widely integrated, and accepted. And what's more is that intentionalist theories of emotion seem to be incompatible with emotion AI technology entirely. Because if emotions were non-discrete, numerous, or even infinite states that vary cross-culturally, then the predictive models deployed by emotion AI systems would require enormous sophistication, and it's doubtful that they could be engineered at all. What if we abandon these technologies altogether? We believe that abandoning emotion AI systems entirely in the context of education would be the ideal solution to the issues described today. The anti-intentionalism at the root of these technologies makes their assessments automatically compromised. We acknowledge, however, that it doesn't seem likely that these technologies will be easily given up by their current users or developers, given both the popularity of basic emotion theory and, again, the strong political agenda invested in implementing these systems and cultivating desirable human emotional capital. Pushback against the agendas behind these technologies is a political challenge. Nonetheless, and despite this challenge, we maintain that the sole good remedy for the harms we have elucidated here is the abolition and abandonment of these systems in the context of teaching and learning. We maintain that these harms are serious, and we hope that this work helps to raise awareness of those harms that these systems allow and to motivate this abolition. That's all, and thank you all very much for listening.